Alarm over a rare kind of earthquake that could shake California harder than anything we've seen before.
Beneath California's Sierra Nevada mountain range after reviewing earthquake data and imaging deep rock formations.
The ground beneath California seemed to wake from a long slumber, the earth shifting in a way that startled even seasoned seismologists. U.S. Geological Survey USGS has issued what they describe as a red alert, following seismic readings far beyond the norm, a warning that underscores the gravity of the moment. Across a patchwork of fault zones, sensors recorded an unprecedented sequence of tremors and movements, unmistakable signals that something deep in the crust is stirring with renewed intensity. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. The tremors began quietly, almost deceptively, with subtle jolts and faint rumbles that many dismissed as passing trucks or distant detonations. Yet beneath those minor quakes, the bigger pattern was emerging. Fault lines, long considered relatively stable, began to slip, warp, and release strain that had been building for decades. Because these movements are happening in a web of interlinked fault systems, the USGS researchers observing the data grew concerned that the ground was entering a new phase of instability, one where one fault's failure could cascade into others. California has always lived under the shadow of the San Andreas Fault and its many subsidiary fractures. But the scale of motion now being detected reaches into areas typically regarded as lower risk. The notion of a red alert reflects not just that shaking was stronger, but that the prelude appears to be larger than we've seen in recent memory. Advanced monitoring shows not only tremors but also ground deformation, GPS stations showing slow creeping shifts, and satellite interferometry indicating the landscape subtly bending. These signs suggest that the crust is undergoing stress adjustments of a magnitude that concern geologists. The implications of such an alert are profound. A red alert from the USGS means that the threshold of seismic strain has crossed into a domain where the potential for a major damaging event has significantly increased. It does not mean a specific earthquake has been predicted, but rather that conditions have developed that historically precede large magnitude quakes. In geological terms, the Earth is warning that it is primed. For a population of tens of millions living along fault lines, the timing could not be more critical. In practical terms, this means the region must brace for a possible major seismic event, one potentially lasting longer, shaking harder, and affecting a broader area than the routine rattles Californians have grown used to. The nature of fault interaction means that a rupture in one section can transfer stress to another, triggering additional breaks. The network of faults beneath coastal and inland California is such that what happens offshore or in a remote canyon can, in the end, impact major metropolitan infrastructure. The sensors are showing these cross-fault couplings, and the USGS is treating them seriously. Historically, California has endured some of the largest earthquakes in North America. The 1906 San Francisco quake, the 1989 Loma Prieta event, the 1994 Northridge tremor, among others. Those preceded periods of quiet or lower activity, but always with the reminder that the next big one is never far off. This current moment, however, feels different. The data suggests not just isolated shaking, but structural deformation of the crust in wider regions, and that is what elevates the warning. The red alert is not just about magnitude, it is about timing, interconnected fault behavior, and the shifting baseline of what seismic hazard means in the modern built environment. From a scientific perspective, the early warning system known as Shake Alert registered trademark offers vital seconds of notice when earthquakes strike. The system detects the initial P waves of an earthquake and tries to forecast the more destructive S waves, enabling automated systems and individuals to take protective action. But the current red alert signals something earlier, not just an occurring quake, but the heightened possibility of one emerging soon. That nuance matters greatly. It shifts the conversation from simply, will there be a big quake, to the conditions are now aligned for one sooner than expected. Cities, infrastructure, and communities now face a heightened risk environment. Bridges, pipelines, power grids, and lifelines designed for routine large earthquakes may find themselves tested by something outside the expected scenario. For urban planners and emergency management professionals, the red alert is assigned to accelerate readiness. Supplies, evacuation plans, utility resilience, public education, and rapid response protocols. Even though such alerts do not guarantee a quake, they represent a moment when vigilance must shift to high gear. Another implication is psychological. Many residents of California live with a latent understanding of shaking. Some have grown complacent. Earthquakes happen, nothing major for a while, business as usual. But when an official body declares a red alert, that baseline mindset must change. The public must awaken to the idea that the big one could arrive not sometime in the distant future, but this cycle. That realization has ripple effects. Insurance markets, real estate valuations, infrastructure investment, and civic preparedness all may respond in significant ways. It also underscores how interlinked geophysical systems are. The crust beneath California doesn't adhere to political boundaries or neat divisions between counties. The forces driving one fault system impact adjacent ones. The red alert implicitly acknowledges that fault zones once considered independent are in fact communicating via stress redistribution. When one segment moves, the chain reaction can propagate. In this sense, the USGS is treating this as a systemic alarm rather than an isolated small quake. For residents, the plain fact is that what has felt like normal seismic background is now elevated. The tremors, the creaks of settlements shifting, the unusual instrumentation readings, they are all pieces of a larger pattern. The red alert from the USGS does not say take shelter right now, but it does say you should act as if one of the largest scenarios is possible in the near term. The difference lies in behavior. Stock emergency kits, secure heavy furniture, know evacuation routes, reinforce buildings if you can, and most importantly, stay alert to official instructions. A major earthquake today would likely affect millions of people, millions of buildings, and lifelines upon which daily life depends. Rather than living in denial, the red alert suggests acknowledging reality. The Earth is aligning towards significant movement. Prior events provide templates, but never guarantees. What is certain is that a high-magnitude quake in a densely populated, interconnected, and infrastructurally complex region like California will play out differently than in the past. New construction standards, digital monitoring, automated infrastructure responses all shift the script, but so does the magnitude of risk. In the immediate term, this alert should spur both individual and collective action. Individuals can check their household readiness, communities can run drills, local governments can reassess lifeline vulnerabilities, utilities can exercise emergency shutdown protocols, transit systems can ensure automated alerts are fully functioning. The red alert highlights the window of opportunity before a major event, not after. The goal is to reduce casualties, reduce damage, and reduce disruption when shaking does strike. From the vantage of the scientific community, the current pattern offers unique study potential. Researchers will monitor microquakes, deformation rates, fault coupling, and stress transfer across systems. The data collected now will feed into hazard models for years to come. In that sense, this red alert is both a warning and a rich research signal. The crust is talking louder than usual, and listening carefully may provide insights into the mechanics of large earthquakes. One of the more subtle implications involves public policy. A red alert of this kind may influence funding, regulatory priorities, building codes, and land use decisions. If officials treat this as a credible signal of elevated risk, investments might shift toward retrofitting older buildings, ensuring emergency power systems, or expanding early warning networks. The cost of being unprepared multiplies rapidly once a major event happens, so acting now makes economic sense as well as humanitarian sense. There is also a cultural shift. Californians have long accepted shaking as part of life, but living in a state of elevated alertness is different. It changes how communities talk about it, how families plan for it, and how education systems integrate earthquake readiness. The fact that the USGS used the term red alert implies that the seismic hazard is not just theoretical, it is imminent enough to elevate its status beyond possible to likely in the short term. That has social resonance. Geographically, no region of California is completely immune, but some areas are more stress-loaded than others. Coastal regions that sit atop old fault lines, inland valleys that experience strain transfer, and mountainous terrain where landslides amplify shaking, all fall under the broader hazard umbrella. Urban centers with high-rise buildings, dense infrastructure, and lifeline dependencies face different challenges than rural areas with simpler systems. The red alert therefore necessitates a differentiated readiness response across the state. The situation also highlights the value of real-time monitoring technologies. Without the network of sensors, GPS stations, satellite interferometry, and automated alerts, this pre-event phase might go unnoticed until the shaking began. The ability of the USGS to issue a red alert now reflects decades of investment in sensing, data processing, and interpretation. It is a landmark moment in seismic hazard mitigation, not just reacting to a quake, but identifying the buildup before the big break. At the same time, uncertainty remains inherent. Earthquakes cannot be predicted with precision. We cannot say exactly where, when, or how large the next event will be. What is clear is that the probability has shifted upward. The red alert signals that ditching complacency is no longer an option. People, systems, and structures must act as though a major quake could occur in the nearer term than was previously assumed. A delay in action increases vulnerability. Another dimension involves the cascading consequences of a large quake. A powerful event would not just cause immediate shaking, landslides, infrastructure damage, plumbing and power failures, fires, hazardous material spills, and transportation collapses are all part of the potential chain. The red alert thus implies readiness not only for the quake itself, but for the messy, extended scenario that follows. Planning for the immediate tremor is necessary but insufficient. Multi-hazard readiness becomes the norm. This moment also challenges the notion of normal. What was once considered rare or once in a lifetime may now be shifting into moderate risk territory. The baseline risk is moving upward. Buildings that were designed for previous levels of shaking may find their assumptions challenged. Insurance firms, policymakers, and engineers will all be watching closely. The red alert may portend a change in the seismic risk landscape for decades. As a society, when alarms like this are raised, how we respond determines the outcome. Taking steps now, before the event, gives us leverage. Retrofitting vulnerable structures, securing emergency supplies, educating families on drop/cover/hold, ensuring community response systems are ready. All increase resilience. The red alert heightens the urgency of that work. It is not doom-mongering, it is pragmatic. The Earth is issuing a higher-level warning, and prudent action is the rational response. The ground beneath California had long held its tension in quiet restraint, but now the sense of brewing transformation is unmistakable. The regions locked along the fault systems, silent for years, decades perhaps, appear to be shifting into something far more dynamic. The U.S. Geological Survey's issuance of a red alert marks not just an alert of heightened possibility, but a moment where precaution must evolve into preparedness. It is a seismic moment in more ways than one. And what unfolds from here will depend in large measure on how society acknowledges and adapts to the signs beneath our feet. What changed is not simply a matter of seeing more tremors. It is the comprehensive pattern of measurements, from subtle ground tilt readings, to GPS networks that detect millimetric shifts, to satellite imagery showing deformation across broad swaths of crust. These are not the roars of a single event, but the whispers of a system adjusting, and the USGS treating them as worthy of red alert status signals that the margins of geological safety are narrowing. When a body such as the USGS chooses the term red alert, the implication is not routine. The implication is, the Earth is unscrewing a bit of the lid. At this moment, much of the public's understanding may still focus on earthquakes in the classic sense, but the truth is more nuanced. These warning signs suggest a phase where fault lines are not waiting for one big break, but are instead entering a regime of interconnected stress transfer. One rupture can lead to another, movement in one area can unload strain in another, and all of it broadly raises the odds of a significant event. These are the invisible mechanics of tectonics coming alive, and for those living in California, they demand attention. This moment invites us to reconsider the assumptions that have held sway in the built environment. Many buildings, bridges, utilities, and lifelines are engineered on a worst-case scenario that may now need recalibration. Those worst cases were based on past data and known fault behavior. But the crust does not promise to stay predictable. Structures designed and certified under earlier hazard models may now face a more aggressive set of conditions. The red alert implicitly raises the bar for what resilient needs to mean. A community's resilience is not only in its ability to respond once shaking begins. It lies in how soon and how comprehensively it prepares. The number of seconds between a quake's initiation and broad-scale shaking is important, but in this current moment, the window closes just a little faster. The interplay of early warning systems, infrastructure design, individual readiness, and emergency response becomes more critical when the baseline hazard climbs. Sensor networks, communication systems, evacuation routes, backup power, all must coordinate faster and more efficiently now. One of the deeper implications concerns the uncertainty itself. We cannot say exactly when or where the next big rupture will happen, nor precisely how large. But we can say the statistical risk is increasing. The red alert is essentially a statement of elevated probability. For most people living day to day, probability is an abstract concept. But for engineers, urban planners, emergency managers, and communities, it becomes a call to action. Systems that once operated with a comfortable margin may find themselves operating in a narrower window, where preparedness is less optional and more vital. From an economic view, the ripple effects will be broad. Insurance companies may reassess risk models, developers may rethink land use near known faults, public budgets may shift toward retrofits and infrastructure hardening. The red alert is not just about geology, it is about economics, governance, and social fabric. When a region like California faces a higher shot at a disruptive quake, the cost of not acting climbs steeply. The difference between being ready and being reactive can mean millions of dollars, thousands of hours of downtime, and much wider disruption. The cultural implications are equally profound. For decades in California, the idea of earthquake preparedness has been part of the civic conversation, and many have grown used to the notion of shaking somewhere, sometime. But the red alert redefines the conversation. It brings into relief a serious near-term possibility. In that shift lies the potential to awaken a deeper level of communal readiness. It invites families to update emergency kits, businesses to double-check continuity plans, schools to review their protocols, and individuals to think not just someday maybe, but in the near term, this could happen. This is also a moment where fault systems themselves deserve renewed attention. The immense network of faults under California, some well-mapped, others less so, is interacting in ways that may exceed previous hazard models. The possibility that a seemingly minor fault movement could unload stress on a major one is now non-negligible. In effect, the red alert may be pointing not only to one fault, but to a multi-fault scenario, a structural cascade rather than a single rupture. That raises the technical challenge for scientists and the practical challenge for society. An elevated hazard environment also underscores how inequality and vulnerability map onto geography and infrastructure. Some communities are structurally more vulnerable: older buildings, weaker infrastructure, less access to preparedness resources. In a higher risk scenario, those inequities do not just persist, they deepen. The red alert asks not just for readiness in general, but for equitable readiness, ensuring that all communities have access to information, resources, and support to prepare. Concurrently, the red alert may accelerate innovation. Seismologists, engineers, urban planners, and computer scientists will all be watching this moment. New sensing methods, improved modeling of fault interaction, enhanced early warning algorithms, all may find impetus from this alert. The practical technologies of resilience, automated shutoffs for utilities, structural health monitors for bridges, machine learning models to anticipate ripple effects, may see faster deployment. The alert functions as both a caution and a catalyst. The psychological dimension cannot be underestimated. For many people, there is the underlying question, when will it happen? But when a red alert is issued, that question morphs into, what will we do if it happens in the next weeks or months? That shift creates an urgency that is different from the usual background anxiety. It may drive action, or if ignored, it may breed latent guilt and regret. How people respond now, by securing furniture, updating emergency contacts, planning for power outages, will carry weight. Importantly, the alert also transforms how we look at normal life. For example, the moment you hear of irregularly long tremors, or you notice ground cracking in unexpected spots, or infrastructure seams begin to reveal strain, you begin to wonder if the event has already begun in a slow, creeping way. The red alert encourages recognizing that what appears to be background noise may actually be part of the larger signal. It means that minor deviations from the norm deserve attention, not just after the fact. For critical infrastructure, The red alert implies heightened vigilance. Transportation corridors, gas pipelines, water systems, communication networks, power grids, they all rely on anticipatory maintenance and real-time response. The interconnectedness of modern systems means that a seismic event of greater magnitude could trigger cascading failures across sectors. A bridge failure could hamper emergency access, a pipeline rupture could curtail water supply, a power outage can cripple communication systems. The red alert thus mandates a systems approach, not just focusing on the quake, but on how everything else responds. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on California's massive quake and the USGS red alert? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching and see you next time.